So we are going to speak on this subject known as secrets of lasting relationship, a subject that is not often discussed in ISKCON, but a subject that is extremely important for every devotee in ISKCON, because relationship is the foundation of everything in life, whether it be our spiritual lives or whether it be business, family life. At every level, relationships make a big difference. So today I'm going to speak some foundational understandings of relationships that can probably change the way you look at any relationship that you have or you will have in future. These principles that I'm going to speak about apply to all levels of relationships. It applies to husband-wife relationships. It also applies to parent-child relationships. It also applies to friendship. It also applies to professional relationships in the office environment. You will realize that these are principles that are very, very simple. And most of the things that I'm going to speak are just common sense. But unfortunately today, common sense is not so common. So we have to have seminars for it. So I'm actually giving seminar on common sense, basically. So please feel free to write down anything that you are inspired by. Try to remember whatever you can. And you will find that in the next 2 days, today and tomorrow, you will be flooded with a lot of information. So you can be ready. I can give you a guarantee that hearing the seminar one time is not going to be enough. So I'm happy that it's being recorded, so you can go back and hear it again whenever you all can. But more than anything else, whatever I'm going to speak is there in my books. So please feel free to revise, read the books again. So it's like a what do you call it? Workbook type of thing. Hear the seminar, and go back and keep reading it again and again. So there's one book called Overnight Meditations that I have written, which is based on that the seminar is developed. And that's a book that I recommend people to at least read 10 times. Not because I have written it, but because it's something that is very useful for devotees. And something that can actually help devotees at many levels. So, success in any walk of life depends on success in relationships. So, if you look at in the recent past, if you look at the types of suicides or people who are really dying in this world, you look at the reasons for which they're dying. 90% of the people who die don't die out of any external defects or problems. Nobody who has physical defects dies. Nobody who has external problems die. But people die out of sadness. And most of the sadness is caused due to broken relationships. 90% of the Bollywood movies is all about love. Either love which is good or love that is bad. And then most movies you'll find, somebody with a gun, somebody with a knife, just because of the whole aspect of frustrated love. So today we're going to explore what exactly relationships are in great depths. Life is about 4 things. Every human being has what we call as 4 needs. The first need is the need to live. Nobody wants to die. Everyone wants to live forever. And therefore this whole pharma industry, the whole hospital industry is thriving because of the desperate desire for people to live. But while living, people don't want to just live, but they also want to learn. That means everyone wants to upgrade in one's knowledge and understanding of life. But it's not just enough to live and to learn, but the third L of life is need to love. Give love and experience love. This is one of the most fundamental needs of human beings. Human beings are not rational animals, they are relational animals. Therefore you will find, why is social media thriving so much? The reason social media is thriving so much is because people are desperate for relationships. And unfortunately, when it comes to live relationships, it is very difficult for people to have live relationships which are good. Because there's always some heartbreaks. Therefore, they prefer social media relationships because you can switch off and switch on anytime. You can unfriend a person anytime. But in live relationships, you tell somebody, you try to put somebody on silent mode, they start vibrating even more. Very difficult to handle people in reality, in real life. The egos are so bad. Therefore, people prefer social media. Friends on Facebook, people whom you can chat with, whom you don't know. And it doesn't matter if you disconnect from them, also doesn't matter, we'll get one more. But the need for social relationships, the need for relationships, it's not forgotten. The need is desperately there. Therefore, the fourth need of every human being, so the first is the need to live, the need to learn, then the third is the need to love, and the fourth is the need to leave a legacy. What is the meaning of leave a legacy? Leave a legacy means, much after you are gone, how do you want to be known? So, there are two ways in which people can know you. Either people think that, good, this fellow died. They'll celebrate, That's one way that people can know you. The other way is, people remember you for what you have given them. No one remembers you for what you have. People always remember you for what you give. The need for leaving a legacy essentially means, how do you leave a legacy? You leave a legacy in people's hearts, depending on the way you connect with them, depending on the quality of your relationships. And therefore, what we do in life and how we connect with people determines how we are remembered much after we are gone. Human beings live for a certain duration of time, say 1977 to 2010. So that whole period of their life is marked by a dash in between. 1977 dash 2010. That means your entire life is that one dash. The quality of that dash determines whether you'll be remembered much later or not. And therefore, Peter Barwash, one of our devotees, he wrote this book called The Dash of Life. It's a very interesting title because the quality of what you do in that dash, it's a very small dash. After you die, it's just one small dash. But the quality of that dash determines whether you're remembered after you're gone. Relationships is like a bird. If you squeeze it too much, it dies. If you set it free, it flies. But if you give it love and affection, it stays. The balance of how much to give and how much not to give, how much to squeeze and how much to set free, that's what relationship is all about. And so today and tomorrow we're going to see what that balance is. So today I'm going to share with you all what I call as a few secrets of lasting relationships. I actually planned to do this tomorrow, but I decided to do this today, and I'll do tomorrow something else. Tomorrow I'm going to do a topic known as emotional intelligence, which is something very, very deep, and it is going to take a longer period of time. So I guess tomorrow we have about 2-3 hours, and we will explore emotional intelligence in very, very deep levels tomorrow. So today we're going to discuss some secrets of lasting relationships, which are very important for us to understand before we really get into the depths of connecting with one another. The first secret is relationship a tool or is relationship the goal? So many times when we're trying to connect with one another, when we're trying to connect with people, the greatest impediment in connecting with people becomes a false ego. Instead of just like, you have a puzzle, and in the puzzle you have all these small, small pieces, right? Now, if all these small pieces fit together, then you can see a bigger picture. But many times, instead of seeing the bigger picture, people try to make themselves a bigger picture. Instead of seeing the goal of the relationship, they focus on their own role only. Like for example, there was a peace conference And this is like an international peace conference, and people from all over the world are going to come. And they had selected some really top level, religious, spiritual leaders. And there was a pre-peace conference. That means before the peace conference, only the speakers were called together to have a discussion about what they're going to speak and how the whole the conference is going to happen. So in this pre-peace conference, there was only the leaders sitting all together, and each one was supposed to present what they're going to speak for 5 minutes. And then after everybody speaks, they were supposed to have a discussion, who will speak first, what slots will be given and all that. So everyone made a presentation. After the presentations were made, then the time came for selecting the slots. At that time, a big fight broke out. Everybody saying, I want this slot. And the other blowing, I want that slot. Can you imagine? These people have come for a peace conference. And in the pre-peace conference, fight has started. So one fellow among them, he was just sitting quietly over there. He had already got a slot. But he was observing there's something weird happening here. So he got up and he said, I want to give my slot to this person. And everybody was surprised. He had got one of the best slots. Why was he giving his slot to another person? He said, this person has better points than me. If you really want to give people a solid impact, he should be given this slot. As soon as this man said this, immediately everybody realized what they are doing. And then everybody else, they kind of started aligning themselves to the goal. So many times, when it comes to relationships, we tend to forget the goal of the relationship and tend to focus on our own role only. In the Ramayana, there is a very beautiful story of the monkey army when the monkey army reached the southern tip of India, and they had to reach Lanka, which is 800 miles away. The question was now, who's going to cross the 800-mile ocean? Now all the monkeys started discussing among themselves, what their strengths and weaknesses are. One monkey said, I can do 20 miles. Another said, I can do 50. Another said, I can do 100 miles. One monkey said, I can do 500 miles. Angad said, I can do 800 miles, but I won't be able to come back. Angad was typically a very conscious person. The reason Angad said, I can't come back is because Angad knew Lanka is a very dangerous place. Not because there are demons there, but because it's a place of temptations. So Angad was not confident if he jumps into Lanka, what if he gets attracted to the temptations and he stays back over there only? Like there are many people who come to America just for a few days. They don't go back only. So Angad was not confident whether he would go back or no. So he said, I can go one way, but I'm not sure I will come back or no. So now after everyone spoke their own strengths, nobody was really able to achieve the task. They all became sad. So that time Jambavan was like the leader among them. He was looking at all the monkeys. And that's when he realized that Hanuman had not spoken at all. So he went and called Hanuman and he said, you are the one who can actually do it. And he started reminding Hanuman of his powers. So as Hanuman was being reminded of his powers, he became more huge. He became really powerful. And then from then onwards, you find Hanuman as a hero of the Ramayana. But if you find a very interesting phenomena in this particular pastime, we find that Jambavan reminded Hanuman. So from the world's point of view, Hanuman is a hero. But from Hanuman's point of view, Jambavan is a hero. Because Jambavan was the one who reminded him of his powers. Just imagine if Jambavan was an insecure person of today. And if he had thought, why should I remind Hanuman of his powers? If I can't do it, why should I remind him and make him the hero? If I can't be hero, he also should not be hero. Let Ram go to hell, let Sita go to hell, I don't care. But if I can't achieve, he also should not be able to achieve. Generally, most people focus on their role. In a relationship, what is important is not the role. What is important is the goal of the relationship. And therefore, there are 3 ways to see any relationship. The first way is known as dependence. That means I am highly dependent on you. Without you, I can't do anything. There are many students who are in this mood, If the person in front of them doesn't come for exam, they will fail. Highly dependent people, you know. This is a highly dependent relationship, you know. It's known as parasitic relationship. It's sucked from the other fellow. Then there is a relationship known as independence. That means I don't need anybody. I can be on my own. There are many people like that in this world, you know, who go through one or two heartburns in their life and then they say, "Bas ho gaya. Akela rehna hai जीवन में. I don't want anyone in my life." You know. So they feel that they can do everything on their own. That is the second type of people, independence. The third type of people are known as who follow the principle of interdependence. Interdependence means I have my strengths, but I also have my weaknesses. And you have your strengths, but you also have your weaknesses. And therefore we synergize. And that synergy creates harmonious relationships and beautiful relationships. Because the focus there is not on the role, not on each one's role, but it's on the goal of what we can achieve in a relationship. The second very important aspect of relationship is known as 4 A's of effective relationships. These 4 A's are very simple principles of relationships, but these are very powerful principles. And anytime these 4 A's are applied, relationships just enhance like anything. The first A is known as acceptance. In the Vidura Niti, Vidura gives 2 examples. The first example he gives is of a honeybee. He says, people should be like honeybee. When honeybee goes and sits on a flower, it takes a little nectar from one flower. It sucks a little nectar from one flower. Then it goes and sits on the next flower. Sucks a little more nectar from the second flower. Then it goes on the third flower. So it just takes little from every flower. Have you ever seen a honeybee taking so much nectar from one flower that the flower dies? No. The honeybee is very sensitive to the flower. Unfortunately today, people don't understand this principle. What we know is, we squeeze a person as much as possible. And when the person is useless, throw him out and get somebody else. This is known as use and throw relationships. So we tend to use people and we tend to love things. Ideally, we should be loving people and using things. But we tend to use people and love things. The reason is because acceptance means that we accept people as they are, rather than expecting them to become as we are. We tend to have very high expectations from people. And when they don't fulfill your expectations, then they are useless for us. And the reason we tend to have very high expectations from people is that we expect them to become a Xerox copy of ourselves. So what people actually want in a relationship is, every person who is connecting to me should become a photocopy of me. Should have same likes and dislikes like me. Should have same interests like me. Should have same mindset like me. Unfortunately, people are different. And the more we tend to look at people and accept people as they are, the better it is for the relationship. The second, appreciation should be done in public and criticism should be done in private. Unfortunately, we do criticism publicly and appreciation, if at all, privately. People struggle so much to appreciate each other today. What people do in the name of appreciation is actually flattery. People don't really appreciate one another. In ISKCON, especially, when we say that you want to appreciate some other devotee, we actually don't appreciate. Most of the time we flatter. What is the difference between appreciation and flattery? Flattery involves only one organ of the body, that is the lips. Whatever comes in your mouth, you speak. Prabhuji, you're like Krishna only for me. What does it mean? Nothing. It doesn't really mean anything, and you don't even really mean it. But you're just saying it because you are in a devotional atmosphere and it's expected that you should do some appreciation. The difference between appreciation and flattery is just lip talk, but appreciation involves many aspects. Appreciation involves the eyes to observe first. That means you observe the good qualities of the person. Then it requires a mind to analyze. Analyze the good qualities of the person. Then your heart feels. And then your lips talk. And when you speak that way, what comes out is appreciation. And such appreciation encourages a person. But flattery doesn't encourage a person, it only boosts the false ego. So what we need to do in our lives is appreciation. And appreciation should be done continuously, constantly, consciously, constructively. If appreciation is done in that way, the relationship really becomes very powerful. I don't know if you ever noticed this, if you look at all our scriptures, whether it is the Gita, the Bhagavad, Mahabharata, Ramayana, wherever people are addressed, it's a very interesting way of addressing. Like for example in the Gita, Krishna calls Arjun as Gudakesh sometimes. He calls him as Parantapa, he calls him as Savyasachi, he calls him by so many names. Why? And even Arjun calls Krishna by so many names. He calls him Govinda, Madhusudan, so many names he calls him. Why? The reason is because just by calling each other different names, they're actually appreciating different qualities of one another. When Krishna calls him as Gudakesh, he's appreciating the quality of Arjun that he has conquered sleep. I mean, can you imagine? It's such a simple thing. Just by calling a name, you're actually appreciating the person's quality. And that means in the Vedic culture, appreciation is like a part of the vocabulary. It's just part of our day-to-day dealings. But unfortunately, because we don't do that kind of appreciation, we have to actually think a lot before appreciating. Appreciation really touches the heart. There was one person whom I was giving a lecture in a pre-marriage reception or something like that. It was like a pre-marriage gathering. They had called me to speak. So I was speaking there and I was speaking about appreciation, how important the appreciation in a relationship. One old man got up, like a 75-year-old man. This fellow said, I am staying with my wife for last 50 years. Does it not mean that I appreciate her? Do I have to actually say that I appreciate her? So I told him, I looked at him and I told him, you have a brilliant smile. This guy, should have seen his face, his smile became even bigger, He became really happy. I asked him, how did you feel? He said, very nice. I said, 75 years you have been smiling, and after 75 years also I'm appreciating you, still feeling good about it. I said, that's exactly how it is. No matter how much people are appreciated, it's not enough. And people need to be appreciated to actually feel loved also. So the first A is acceptance, the second A is appreciation, the third A is acknowledgement. In a relationship, people need to feel acknowledged. Their presence needs to feel acknowledged. One time in our community, in our temple, there was a man who wrote a complaint, an email with a huge list of complaints against the management. Now there are two ways the management could have dealt with it. One way was that they could have just neglected it because this person is not really a very important person or something like that. But fortunately, the management decided to actually appoint a very senior person to go and sit with him and find out what exactly is happening. So the senior devotee sat with this man for 2 hours, and this man had only negative things to say. 2 hours constantly only speaking negative. Next day they again met. Another 2 hours, only negative. They met like this for 4 days continuously. And after 4 days, when this fellow came, the 5th day, this fellow had a changed person. He actually had tears in his eyes. He was crying and was talking about all the positive things about the management. Now what did this devotee do? Nothing much. He just sat and heard him. That's all. Many times when people come to me with their problems, I'm sitting with them, hearing them for an hour, and they're going on and on with what they're going through in their life. And after 1 hour, they're telling me, thank you very much, Prabhuji, you have solved our problem. Most of the time I'm not even open my mouth. I realized that people don't need solutions to the problems of life. They just need to feel that they have been understood. That's all. Because most problems in life don't have a solution. There are very few problems that actually have a solution. Most problems have to be tolerated. And some problems have to be neglected. There are very few problems that can actually be solved. In Ayodhya, when Dasharath wanted to appoint the next king, he asked the citizens of Ayodhya who should be the next king. And everyone was enthusiastic that Ram should be the king. So Dasharatha asked all of them, what is it in Ram that you all see that you all feel that he should be the king? And one of the things that the citizens of Ayodhya said, they said that Ram connects with us so intimately, so much, that he comes to our house even when we don't call him. He just comes to all our houses. And they said that when we have a problem, when we have a difficulty and we are going through a crisis, Ram comes and he cries with us. In fact, he cries more than our family members also. And they said when we have a joyful moment in our lives, Ram comes and he's more happy than our family members. They said we have no idea why and how Ram does that. Now if you notice this section, it's a very interesting thing that citizens of Ayodhya, they don't say that when we have difficulties in life, Ram comes and solves our problems. They say that Ram comes and cries with us. Which essentially means that Ram is not solving everybody's problem, though he is God over there. Why? Not all problems are meant to be solved. Some problems are meant to be tolerated, some problems are meant to be neglected. And therefore, when people feel acknowledged, they actually feel valued. So first thing is acceptance, second thing is appreciation, and third thing is acknowledgement. And if these three A's are not done, then a fourth A follows. The fourth A is known as alienation. Suddenly people start feeling that they're staying with an alien. If they don't feel enough acknowledged, enough appreciated, enough accepted, they start feeling that they're staying with an alien. Alien speaks different language. He's in a different world. And we can't understand what the fellow is saying. That's what an alien is. Right? So many times in the relationship, when people are not accepted, not acknowledged, and not appreciated, they feel disconnected from one another. And that disconnection is very dangerous for a relationship. That disconnection actually takes the relationship apart. One of the most important needs in a relationship is the need to be understood. In Ayodhya, there are different ministers who handle different departments. And one of the departments in Ayodhya is handled by a minister named Ashoka. And this entire department is only meant for one purpose. You know what's the purpose of the department? The purpose of this department is to make sure that people don't have grudges. So, an entire department created to go around the whole kingdom of Ayodhya to find out if people have problems or not. Can you imagine? Just imagine if we have a department like that in India today. What would happen? People just go crazy. And today in Donald Trump's reign, you have a department like that. So, essentially, if you try to understand why this department was created in Ayodhya, because the need of a human being, the greatest need of a human being, is the need to be understood. Unfortunately, human beings, they don't want to understand others, but they want to make themselves understood. How do you understand others? You understand others if you have the patience to listen to them. Unfortunately, no one listens. People love to speak, but no one loves to listen. In fact, people are so enthusiastic to speak. Human beings have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Why? So that you can speak less and hear more. But unfortunately, we end up speaking more and hearing less. This deep-seated addiction to conclude before listening is a very powerful thing in a human being. Even before we listen to what the other fellow is trying to say, we already made our conclusions. Because we just don't have the practice to listen. We love to speak, we love to, tell whatever we have in our mind, even before the other fellow completes the sentence. There was a guy who had gone to a hotel, and he asked this person in the hotel, he asked the waiter, do you have any solution for hiccups? The waiter said, wait a minute. He bent down, picked up a mop from the ground, and he hit this one on his face. He said, why did you hit me? He said, see, your hiccup is gone. This is a new solution for hiccup. This fellow said, I don't have hiccup, my wife sitting outside in the car has hiccup. Now, before understanding the problem only, he gave a solution. That's exactly what happens in most people's lives. Everyone wants to be Superman and Superwoman. Before understanding the problem only, you want to give a solution. Why? The reason is because to be able to listen carefully, you need to have some patience. Unfortunately, people just don't have the ability to listen. When we are taught communication skills in schools and colleges, we are taught reading skills, writing skills, speaking skills. Unfortunately, in communication skills, we are never taught listening skills. Which is the most important part of communication is listening. And we are not taught listening skills formally. It is assumed that your ears are always open, so you should be able to listen. But just because ears are open doesn't mean you listen. Mouth is shut, but ears are always open. But can you imagine, in spite of ears always being open, we can't hear. And that's the unfortunate reality of life. There are 5 types of listenings. The first type of listening is known as spaced out listening. Spaced out listening means physically hear. Oh.
Just lose connection.
I don't know. Anyway. Yeah, the first type of listening is known as spaced out listening. Spaced out listening means physically hear, mentally not hear. There are many people who come to ISKCON lectures, especially those who are interested in only prasad, They come and sit over there. You can make out they're not there, They're physically there, numbers are there, but they are mentally not there at all. They're sitting on Eiffel Tower, Statue of Liberty, somewhere they're sitting somewhere else only. The second type of listening is known as pretend listening. This is worse. Pretend listening means they sit in the front, the eyes are always open, they nod the head also. Perfect. It seems as if they are most enthusiastic listeners, but they are not listening at all. This is known as pretend listening. The third type of listening is known as selective listening. Selective listening means I listen only to those words that are useful to me. Like there was one fellow who used to go to a mosque every day. So he stopped going suddenly. So the Maulvi, he was very worried and he went and tried to find out where this fellow disappeared. So when he went to his house, he asked him, why are you not coming to the mosque? He said, it is written in the Quran, one should not go to the mosque. Now this fellow got the shock of his life. He said, I have read Quran so many times, I have never come across a sentence. He said, let me show you. He went and brought the Quran. And in that Quran is written, sentence is written, one should not go to the mosque. This fellow now was totally bewildered. So he went through it carefully and then he realized that this sentence was the last sentence in that page. And he continued to the next page, it said, without washing one's hands and legs. This fellow only read this part, one should not go to the mosque. And he closed the book. This is known as selective listening. Only hear that thing that is useful to me. Then there is something known as word listening. Word listening means I only hear words, but I don't hear the meaning behind those words. There are many people who catch words, catch you on words. 23rd March 2015, you said that to me. Come on. The mood was different at that point of time, the situation was very different, my mindset was very different, what I was feeling was very different. All that people don't remember. They remember the words. That word, you said that word to me. So when you only catch people on words, or only when you try to hear words, actually words don't convey everything. The feeling behind the words, the intention behind the word is more important than just the words. And the last type of listening is known as empathic listening. Empathic listening essentially means that you try to put yourself in the shoes of the person that you're speaking with. And not just hear the words, but also hear the feeling behind those words. And not just have a conversation in terms of externals, but really try to empathically try to understand what that person is going through in his or her life. That's when listening happens in a complete way. One of the problems in relationships, one of the greatest problems in relationships is talent. Talented people are some of the most loneliest people in the world. In fact, the more talented you are, the more lonely you become. I have seen so many talented people in my life, and unfortunately, they have such a struggle in relationships. They are expert in everything else, but when it comes to relationship, they're a massive failure. Because talent can help you overcome many aspects of life. Talent can help you overcome many problems that you come across in life. It can in fact open many doors to success. It can open the first door to success. It can open the second door to success. It can open the third door to success. But talent can never open the final door to success. Because the final door to success is not opened only by talent, but it is opened by good attitude. Unfortunately, people who are highly talented, they actually never ever cultivate their attitude. And because they remain very, very hollow and have wrong attitudes in life, they just become very, very negative in relationships. Like I had a young couple who came to me and they were like on a verge of divorce. I asked them what happened, and highly talented people. The husband was a IIT IIM. For those who know what it means, in India IIT IIM means almost like a demigod only. Highest degree India can give practically. So you can imagine how intelligent he was. And his wife was a ISB, she's an MBA from ISB, a very, very reputed institute. Highly talented people living together. But they just couldn't handle each other at all. I said, what happened? His wife comes and tells me, for my husband, everything is Excel sheet. I said, what do you mean by that? He said, she's saying that whatever I do for him, he writes in Excel sheet. If I smile at his mother, he writes an Excel sheet, puts a tick. Then he smiles at my mother and puts a tick. If I give a gift to him, he puts a tick. Then he gives a gift to me, then he puts a tick. She said, I can't handle this. For him, everything is Excel sheet. So when people are highly talented, talent sometimes becomes like a, it kind of chokes your ability to connect with one another. Some of the people who have the highest IQs have the lowest EQs. And that's what we're going to discuss tomorrow. Because in relationship, if you don't have a strong emotional quotient, it's very difficult to connect on a stable level. And unless and until we learn to develop our own emotions and develop our own ability to connect with other people's emotions and develop our ability to understand other people's emotions, the relationships will become meaningless practically. So, when people are hired in the Australian Army, there is a very interesting test, very interesting requirement that they have. They try to see if you have ever had an academic failure in your life. And if you have never failed in academics, they don't take you in the army. Can you imagine? One place where if you have failed, you are welcome. The reason they don't take a person who has never failed is because they don't know how this guy will handle failures. This is the problem with talented people. Because whatever problems they have come across in their life, talent has been able to help them overcome it. But when it comes to relationships, no matter how much talented they are, this problem can't be solved by talent. And therefore, they go through such crisis when they cannot handle a relationship properly. Because they are not used to solving a problem without talent. Relationships is something that talent cannot help you with. What is really needed to help connect with, overcome problems in a relationship is a good attitude. Like there was a young couple that came to me. Few months of their marriage, they were going through a divorce. I said, what happened? The husband and wife, I asked them, where did the fight begin? They said, fight began first day only. I said, what happened? She said, first day in the morning, the husband was brushing his teeth. So this fellow, he squeezed the toothpaste from top. The wife said, why are you squeezing from top? Squeeze from below. The husband said, no, mera style hai. Upar se squeeze. That's where the fight began. Can you imagine now? What difference it makes whether they squeeze the toothpaste below or on top? Unfortunately, when you don't have the right attitude, and the mind doesn't have the ability to process, It's always thinking from the point of view of right and wrong. When somebody is right doesn't mean the other person is wrong. There can be many rights and there can be many wrongs. But unfortunately, when you are highly talented, you cannot handle other things. You just either it has to be right or it has to be wrong. Nothing in between. And therefore, having the right attitude is very, very fundamentally important for having good relationships in life. Another very important aspect of relationship is our ability to see others' faults, see others' shortcomings, and see our own shortcomings. In the Mahabharata, there is a very interesting story of Dronacharya who called Duryodhana and Yudhishthira. He told Duryodhana, go into the kingdom and at least find one person who is better than you. And he told Yudhishthira, go at least and find one person who is worse than you. So Duryodhana went out, searched hundreds and thousands of people he met. He came back and told Dronacharya, sorry, I couldn't even find one person better than me. Because every person had one defect that I didn't have. And Yudhishthira went and came back and he said, I'm sorry, I couldn't find any person worse than me. Because every person had one good quality that I didn't have. Dronacharya said, I have found both the people. He told Duryodhana, the one person who is better than you is Yudhishthira. And the one person worse than you is Duryodhana. So our analysis of others are sometimes expressions of our own needs and values. So when we look at somebody else, how do we look at them? That determines who we are actually. There is something known as the lens principle. The lens principle says, who you are determines what you see. Depending on what your inner substance is, that is what you will see in others. Duryodhana could only see faults in others. And Yudhishthira could only see good in others. Depending on who they are. So who you are determines what you see. Second thing is, who you are determines how you see others. There was a man who came to a village for the first time in his life. And he stopped at the entrance of the village and he met an old man. And he asked the old man, how are the people in the village? The old man asked him a question. He said, how are the people in the village you came from? This fellow said, all useless people. Completely selfish, cruel, completely bad people. The old man said, same here. So this fellow entered the village very sadly. After some time, another man came and he met the same old man. And he asked the same question, how are the people in this village? The old man asked him the same question, how are the people in the village you came from? He said, they are such kind, amazing, gentle people, very loving, very caring. The old man said, same here. Same old man, same village and same people. But he gave them two different opinions. Because who you are determines how you see others. If you are kind-hearted, you will see everybody is kind-hearted. If you are very critical, you will find everybody around you critical. And then who you are determines how you see life. Depending on what you are made up of, what your inner substance is, that is what you will see everywhere around you. There are many people who see life as completely bad. And there are some people who see life as very beautiful. There are some people who see life as no colors at all. Boring, same, everyday, same thing. And there are some people who see life as so beautiful, so many colors, so many varieties. It's not that life is, different. It just depends on what lens you are wearing. If you're wearing the right lens, that is the way you will see life. There was a small child who wanted to play a prank on his grandfather. His grandfather was sleeping on an easy chair. The child went and he took some piece of old smelly cheese and put it on the mustache of the grandfather. And he went and hid. The grandfather got up and he started smelling. He said, this room is stinking today. He went to the next room. He said, this room also is stinking. He went all around the house. He said, the whole house is stinking today. He went outside the house. He said, the whole world is stinking today. Where was the stink? Below his nose. So many times when we see that the world is bad or life is useless, it all depends on the way we see it. It's our own lens. And if you just change our lens, a lot of things change. When we look at people, we see them as either good or bad. There are 5 ways to see people. The first way to see people is you only see the bad and magnify the bad like anything. The second way to see people is see good and bad but magnify the bad. The third way to see people is see good and bad and emphasize both. The fourth way to see people is see good and bad but magnify the good. And the fifth way to see people is see good and bad but only focus on the good and magnify it like anything. Now, depending on who we are, we end up seeing people in 5 different ways. Of course, I don't think we can see people only good and only magnify that. I don't think we are so good. It can only be divine people who can do that. And we are not so bad that we only see bad in people and magnify it, But we are somewhere in between. So we have to try to, as much as possible, start looking at the good in people. There are 2 examples that are given in the scriptures. One is a housefly. A housefly, if you look at the nature of flies, if the fly goes into a garden with beautiful flowers also, you'll find the fly will not sit on any of the flowers, it will go and sit on some piece of dirt. And in the same garden, you will find a honeybee. And a honeybee, no matter how much dirt is there, even if it's in the middle of a garbage bin, it will focus on one flower and sit on that flower. So now we need to decide what mentality we want to adopt. Do we want to adopt the honeybee mentality or do we want to adopt the housefly mentality? Depending on which mentality we adopt, we develop a certain type of personality and certain type of mindset in our personal lives. And that determines, the way we look at people. When we look at relationships in life, by proving that somebody is wrong in a relationship, you can never get the relationship right. In a relationship, whoever is proved wrong, somehow the relationship itself goes wrong. The ego needs to prove that I am right and you are wrong. That's the nature of the false ego. Desperate to prove that I am right and you are wrong. Blaming others is nothing but excusing yourself. So when we say sorry when I am right, it only means that I value the relationship and you more than valuing right and wrong. And therefore, in relationships, we should never ask the question whose mistake it is. The moment you ask the question whose mistake it is, the relationship starts falling apart. The question that should always be asked in a relationship is whose life it is. Just imagine you are driving on a highway and there's a huge highway and you're in a car driving in the right direction, and as you're driving, in front of you a huge black truck comes. And a huge black truck comes from the opposite direction, and that fellow is coming on the wrong way. What will you do? You'll adjust yourself to save the, prevent meeting the accident. Suppose you go a little further and second black truck comes, what will you do? Again you will adjust yourself. Suppose you go a little further and third black truck comes, what will you do? Again you will adjust. Suppose the 20th truck comes, what will you do? You will again adjust. Because when it comes to limitations of traffic on the road, the question you ask yourself is not whose mistake it is. The question you ask yourself is whose life it is. And suppose you decide, how many times I will adjust. Let the flow adjust now. And you don't move. And the truck bangs you. And you will end up in a hospital with your hand and leg fractured. And somebody comes and asks you, what happened? You can't say, I was right and you was wrong. Doesn't make any sense, Similarly, in relationships also, there is a lot of limitation in the traffic on the road of relationships. Whenever you ask this question, whose mistake it is, then you actually end up messing the relationship. The question that you should always ask is whose life it is. In every relationship, there is a golden egg. And I'm sure all of you have heard of the farmer that had a hen that laid the golden egg, So in every relationship is like a hen. And the golden egg is all the beautiful things that come out of the relationship as a result of the relationship. But the problem with the hen is that it eats too much. The front part really eats a lot. So the farmer got really irritated. How much is someone eating? Only the back part is useful to me, front part is useless to me. So he said, let me cut the hen into half. Only keep the back part, throw the front part out. In every relationship, you'll always remember there is a front part and a back part. There is a useful part and a not so useful part. If you want the useful part, you have to tolerate the not so useful part. In every relationship, you will always find there is going to be people who will have idiosyncrasies, who will have weird behaviors, who will have defects, who will have, shortcomings, weaknesses. And if you want the good that comes out from the relationship, you have to learn to tolerate the bad. And that's the most important thing if you want to remember the long-term goal of the relationship. This is known as Shreyas or Preyas. Most people are looking for short-term pleasures, pleasure today. But actually wise people should look for long-term pleasure. That means today the relationship may be intensely bad, or we're struggling like anything against our false egos. But if we continue struggling for some time, a time will come when we fall in sync with one another. And the false egos kind of just fit in perfectly, So till that time, what do? Just tolerate. People are always going to be different. You will never have people who are perfectly same in a relationship. Everyone is different. And therefore, it is important to acknowledge the differences and look at the similarities. I'll end with a very important way in which we deal with relationships, which is from a very beautiful story of the Ramayana, which is one of my favorite stories of the Ramayana. This story of the Ramayana happens when Ram, Lakshmana and Sita are in the forest and the golden deer comes into their life. So when the golden deer comes into their life, Ram, Lakshmana and Sita is inspired by the golden deer. She loves the golden deer. It has beautiful golden skin. It has silver spots on it. Its ears are blue in color, and its another ear is pink in color. And the belly of the golden deer has a rainbow color. So this deer is so fascinating to look at. The Sita just falls in love with the deer. She tells Ram, get me this deer. First time in the last 25 years of their marriage, Sita asked anything from Ram. So Ram, he tells her, I'll get the deer for her. Absolutely. He tells Lakshman, guard Sita, and he goes away. So when he reaches a little distance, he realizes it's not a deer, it's a demon named Marich. So he shoots an arrow and kills Marich. And while Marich is dying, in the voice of Ram, he shouts out for Sita and Lakshman for help. Intensely shouts out. So when Sita hears Ram's voice, she becomes very concerned. She starts panicking. She tells Lakshman, go and help your brother is in trouble. Lakshman starts laughing. The Acharyas explain why Lakshman laughs. Lakshman is a guru of course. Lakshman is thinking that generally when a living entity is in trouble, when all of us are in trouble, what do? We shout out to God, oh God, please help me. But this is the first time when God is in trouble, he's shouting out, oh living entity, please help me. So Lakshman is laughing, thinking like that. I have never heard that God calls out to a living entity for help. So Lakshman tells her, don't worry, Ram cannot be in trouble. Sita tells, come on, don't you hear? You didn't hear Ram's voice. Why are you so complacent? She starts pushing him like anything. Lakshman is not budging from there. So finally, Sita uses very heavy words to push Lakshman away. So here is conflict between Sita's concern and Lakshman's confidence. It's not that Sita and Lakshman were not wanting safety of Ram. Both wanted Ram to be safe, but at the same time, they were looking at Ram from two different points of view. Sita was concerned about Ram, and Lakshman was confident about Ram. Who is right? Sita is right or Lakshman is right? Or who is wrong? Sita is wrong or Lakshman is wrong? Neither of them are. They're just looking at the same scene from two different perspectives. So you don't have to be right or wrong to get into a conflicting situation. Conflict just happen like that only. So Sita starts blaming Lakshman, and she in fact abuses him literally. So now Lakshman, for the last 13 years, he has been serving like a menial servant to Sita and Ram. Left his family, left his wife, left the comfort of his house. Everything he has left for these two people. And he has not slept for one night also. For 14 years, for the last 13 years, he has not even slept one night. So when I say he has not slept one night, it doesn't mean he was doing a call center job. He was not sleeping all day long, He was not sleeping all night long, and all day long he was doing seva. He was serving them menially, building houses, building boats, carrying all their luggage, doing so many menial things for them, finding food for them. And after 13 years of such service, Sita tells this to Lakshman. She tells him, I know why you have come here to the forest with us. You are waiting for a chance that Ram goes away so that you can enjoy me. Can you imagine? Sita doubts his character. I mean, we know Lakshman's character. Lakshman was a person who had not seen Sita above her feet. I mean, the time for identifying the ornaments of Mother Sita came when Sugriva showed all the ornaments. Lakshman could not identify any ornament of Sita except the one that was on her feet, the nupur and the anklets. So with such a person, she is doubting his character. So Lakshman feels so hurt. Now, at that point of time, Lakshman doesn't go and start discussing, do you know how much I saw you, I have not seen you little now. He doesn't get into all the argumental thing, He doesn't try to defend himself. He doesn't try to justify himself. He just walks away. Sometimes when people are not in the right frame of mind, that's not the time to discuss. That time is best to let go. So Lakshman walked away. So when Lakshman walked away, he reached where Lord Ram was. Lakshman in fact told Sita that I am sure when I come back you are not going to be here. And he left. So when he reached Ram, Ram asked him, who told you to come here? I told you to guard Sita. What are you doing here? And then both of them come back and find Sita is missing. Ram blasts Lakshman left, right, center. He tells him, you are a useless person. The one thing I told you to do, you can't do that also. You have no competence. I mean, in all these years that they have been doing seva, that time Ram didn't say all this. And one mistake he made is firing him left, right, center. Can you imagine Lakshman's situation? One person who has given his youth to these two people. He has given all his life, all his comforts, he has given the company of his wife. He has done so much sacrifice for them. One is doubting his character and one is doubting his competence. For somebody whose character and competence are doubted, what is the hope, what is the inspiration to continue in such a relationship? If anybody had to go through something like this in any organization, working for somebody and somebody's his character and competence is doubted, you say, hell with these two people, I'll go back to Ayodhya and have a good time over there, What am I getting over here by being doubted of my character and my competence? So Lakshman, he could have easily given up at this point of time. Packed up his luggage and gone back to Ayodhya. But Lakshman doesn't do that. Lakshman continues serving Sita and Ram in spite of that. That teaches a very important lesson in relationships. In fact, all of us will go through such a phase in our life where somebody we love the most insults us so badly. Insult is not so much so hurtful when somebody who insults us is a stranger. But someone whom we love the most, when that person insults us, the feeling of hurt is the deepest. Now, how do you handle it, in such situations? If you don't know what Lakshman did, so many relationships can get broken. In fact, 30 years of relationship can get broken in 30 seconds if you don't know this rule what Lakshman followed. He did what I call as press the pause button. So when Sita spoke those words, Lakshman pressed the pause button. And when Ram spoke those words, again he pressed the pause button. When you're going through an action movie and suddenly some phone call comes, what do you do? Press the pause button. You don't want to miss any action, right? So when Lakshman pressed the pause button, he asked himself a question. The question that he asked himself is, does Sita mean what she spoke? And the answer that he got from within his heart was no. Her concern for Ram is coming out of the form of those words. She was desperate to push him somehow to go and help him. That's all. The concern came out of the form of these words. And when Ram spoke those words, again Lakshman pressed the pause button and he asked himself the same question. Does Ram mean what he spoke? And again the answer that he got from within was no. His concern for Sita is coming out of the form of those words. Now when we go through such a situation in our lives, Most people ask me, what to speak of pressing the pause button? We don't know where the remote control is in such situations of life. Very difficult to press pause button and all the philosophy, all that goes for a toss. Now, just to make you understand, Lakshman was not an ordinary person. He was an angry young man. At the drop of the hat, he would get angry. He was a very volatile person. He practically had no self-control. So many situations, Ram had to make him quiet. When such an angry person in this situation is so delicate, how did he manage to become so self-controlled that he pressed the pause button and all that? One thought in Lakshman's mind helped him press the pause button. When Sita spoke those words, the one thought was a thought of gratitude. Lakshman was thinking, should I forget to be grateful for the 25 years of love that Sita has deposited in this relationship, for this one withdrawal, for this one mistake that she made? And when Ram spoke those words, again this one thought of gratitude helped him. He said, 40 years Ram has deposited love in this relationship, and he has made one withdrawal, one mistake. Should I forget to be grateful for the 40 years of love, for this one mistake that he has made? This one thought of gratitude helped Lakshman press the pause button. Many times when we go through such situations in our personal lives, we forget to be grateful. We forget to be grateful for all the years and years and years of love that has been deposited in the relationship. And we just focus on that one withdrawal, that one negative experience. This thought of gratitude is a very important thought for human beings to have, especially when it comes to important relationships of life. We cannot control what others do or what others say, but we can definitely control what we do and what we say. Therefore, it is very important for us to develop this whole thought process of controlling our own emotions. It is said the quality of my communication with the world outside determines my success, but the quality of my communication with the world inside determines my happiness. Tomorrow, as we are going to continue this discussion on relationships, I am going to speak more about how to handle your own emotions and how to identify your own emotions, and then how to manage other people's emotions and how to help handle other people's emotions. And only when we have the combination of these four things, then we will be able to have relationships in a more effective way. Just summarizing everything we spoke today, I started by speaking about tool or goal. We need to focus on relationship, not on our own role, but on the goal of the relationship. Here we spoke about the story of Hanuman and Jambavan. Jambavan focused on the goal of the relationship and not just on his personal role. Then we spoke about the 4 A's of relationships. We spoke about acceptance, appreciation, acknowledgement, and alienation. Then we spoke about talent versus attitude, how important talent is. And in fact, talent becomes many times an obstacle if you don't have good attitude in relationships. Then we spoke about how one should not judge, but rather look at people as they are. Here we spoke about the lens principle, how one should when we look at others, our analysis of others are expressions of our own needs and values. Spoke about the story of Duryodhana and Yudhishthira here. Then we spoke about preparing for relationships. Here we spoke about the lens principle. Who you are determines what you see. Who you are determines how you see others. And who you are determines how you see life. And then we spoke about being happy with yourself. That means here we spoke about how one should look at our own strengths and weaknesses. Each one of us have our own unique qualities, and others also have their own unique qualities. So that means be satisfied with who you are and not try to imitate somebody else. We'll speak more on this tomorrow. And then finally we spoke about react or respond. And here we spoke about the concept of pressing the pause button in the story of Lakshman. I'll stop here. Thank you very much. We are getting late for I think just 1 minute left. So probably you can just make some announcements if there is a need to make announcements.
A few minutes if there's 1 or 2 questions.
Okay. The Aarti doesn't begin exactly on time?
Yeah, it's real because.
Okay. So anybody has any big question?
When you say relation, you have to have tolerance in relation. So how do you tolerate it? Maybe you can tolerate in family settings, but how can you do that in business settings? Tolerate. People will,
Yeah, so in business settings, there's a difference between the way you deal with people in business settings and family setting. In family, there is love. The prime motivating factor is love. In business, the prime motivating factor is not never love. You can't love your business partner. Doesn't make sense. In business, you need to approach people in a very different way. In business, it's all need-based relationships. There are some people who are very genuine, and with such people you can develop all the qualities that we discussed. But for most people, they're just acquaintances, right? There are different levels of relationships. There is something known as bandhu. Bandhu means acquaintance. I mean, you just hang around with them or you do business deals with them. There you don't develop very deep relationships with them. We don't need all the principles that we spoke about. Then there are something known as sakha. Sakha means a little more intimate friendship. With such people, you need to have a little more tolerance and a little more connection than with the bandhu. Then there's surat. Surat means very intimate friend. With them, you need to have all the tolerance in the world. So depending on who you are dealing with, you need to kind of increase the level of tolerance, basically. Yes.
What if someone's angry at you and they always mention what you did every single day? What should we do?
Tomorrow I'm going to speak about how to deal with angry people. That time you'll get the answer, okay? Yes.
About point number 3, Prabhuji, talent versus attitude.
Yeah.
You were giving that example of right or wrong.
Yeah.
You don't understand anything in between. How can we teach a kid, to be in between? So the kid only understands that this is right and wrong.
Kids, maximum their understanding comes by observation. They don't understand words, they understand actions. So if you want to teach a kid, you have to show it by your own actions. Unfortunately, what happens is our words and actions are very different. We tell them do this, but we do something else. Child is very smart. So we have to be very careful when we are dealing with kids. The best way to deal with children, teach children important things is by your own actions. Unfortunately, you can't imitate, you can't be ungenuine in that, right? So that's the best way to teach children. They don't understand something, no problem. You keep acting in the right way, and then over a period of time, they'll understand what is the right way to act.
So do we pass the message or we don't pass the message?
See, you have to pass the message. Like Saint Francis of Xavier, he would say to his preachers, preach all day, and if necessary, speak. Preach all day, if necessary, speak. That means preach by actions, basically.
Another question I'll ask you offline.
Yeah. We can